serene hills are hallowed and historic, where the stories of the Bible played out thousands of years ago. Now, some biblical characters are back after a long absence. They're called Jacob's sheep. They were brought back by these modern-day shepherds.
It's a very, very enlightening feeling, you know. We believe we are doing something significant historically.
The flock is now home at this farm in Nes Harim, an agricultural town high in the hills west of Jerusalem. Gil and Jenna Lewinsky, husband and wife, brought them here, carrying out a plan of biblical proportions. Gil was born in Israel, but spent most of his life in Canada. Jenna is from South Africa. She met Gil, they moved to Abbotsford, BC, and that's where all this began, where they first learned about the rare breed known as Jacob's sheep. While extinct in the Middle East, the animals were introduced to Europe and North America. In BC, they started to learn about the breed and their history. The story of Jacob's sheep is found in the book of Genesis, where the patriarch Jacob took speckled sheep and bred them with a spotted variety. The result, a breed that usually has as many as 6 horns, white with black patches.
I felt I had to preserve this. The flock I had with me, I wanted to preserve it because it is something very precious.
In Abbotsford, the Lewinskys began to buy up all the Jacob's sheep they could find, then started breeding them. By last summer, they had more than 100 on their farm, so the couple decided it was time to leave their jobs in Canada and completely change their lives.
That's when I started to realize in my own spiritual journey how much more there is to life. And I think something inside of me came alive.
But moving a big flock of sheep halfway around the world isn't that easy.
When I started to look into sending the sheep to Israel, I realized that we'd need our own personal set of miracles.
They needed to cut through all kinds of red tape in Canada and from the Israeli government as well. The sheep would fly to Israel, but out of Toronto. So the animals were loaded onto a truck for their cross-country journey from Abbotsford to Hamilton, Ontario, where they had to stay in quarantine for a while, before heading to Pearson Airport in Toronto.
The first one? 5,000.
It's time for one last check from the vet, Dr. A.K. Bardwaj.
When we are loading them, there should be no injury, there should be no abuse to the animals. So that's what I am checking to make sure everything goes fine.
Come on, girls. Come on. Come on, Mama. Come on, Mama.
Then it's over to Air Canada, in charge of what is the largest airlift of animals from Canada ever.
Easy, 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 easy. Easy, Mama. Go in.
The big concern, making sure they can breathe on board. That means the flock has to be split up, loaded into a special crate, over 11 separate flights from Toronto to Tel Aviv. "12 hours later, they've arrived. After 3 years and a journey of nearly 15,000 kilometers, the sheep are home, back in the Holy Land. First, though, they have to clear customs.
It says all the different permissions to allow the sheep to be loaded.
So now what happens?
Now we load the sheep. Let's go.
They're a little shy at first. But soon, this group, 19 in all, is loaded up and sent to yet another quarantine in southern Israel. And that's where the problems begin. It's cold when they arrive, lots of rain takes its toll, and 5 sheep die.
They had to basically survive there in those conditions for the mandatory 8 days for that shipment. So some of the sheep just weren't strong enough.
After a few weeks, the remaining flock, 114 in all, are on the road again, heading from southern Israel to the farm at Nes Harim. Still, there are challenges. Livestock theft is a big problem in Israel, so the Lewinsky's have security cameras installed. At night, the sheep are locked inside the barn. Gil and Jenna keep an eye on them 24 hours a day. So far, it's cost about $80,000 to bring the sheep to Israel.
Come. Enjoy.
Most of that paid for by a group of Jewish and Christian donors back in Hamilton, Ontario.
It's just a strange thing to explain to somebody, but I had a passion for doing this. And I think when you have a passion and a dream, and you never give up, then eventually you're going to achieve it.
Even though some animal experts have raised doubts that DNA of these sheep is the same that dates back to the biblical flock, that doesn't matter to the Lewinsky's. And to this respected biblical scholar, Yair Zakovich from Hebrew University in Jerusalem.
It felt great. It really felt great. Made me very happy.
Zakovich says bringing the sheep back here is part of something larger happening these days across the Holy Land.
We are nostalgic, and we want this country to look at least a bit the way it looked in the biblical times, as if we are attaching ourselves back to the Bible and having the same fauna and flora and all the animals here is part of this big, large picture.
Jacob's sheep have probably not roamed these hallowed hills for some 2,500 years. The Lewinsky's say bringing them back has become their calling.
They're actually property of the descendants of Jacob, which are the Jewish people today. So for this reason, it's very, very important for them to return to Israel, where the Jewish people have their state.
They have big plans for their flock. The Lewinsky's want people to come and meet the sheep. They're planning on opening a heritage farm here, so Israelis and tourists alike can come to reach out and touch a piece of biblical history, now roaming in these sacred hills. Derek Stoffel, CBC News, Nes Harim, Israel.